Yeah, we are joined by Jennifer Epstein, a White House reporter for Bloomberg. Jennifer, thanks for joining us. So President Trump has certainly been encouraged to bring up Russia's meddling in the 2016 election. He was asked yesterday if he would definitively acknowledge that Russia did meddle in the election, and he sort of couched his answer saying, well, they may have, but maybe some other countries did as well. And the other thing that we've heard from the president is that he thinks it's a good thing if Putin likes him. How can that be a bad thing when you're tackling these meaty, difficult topics? How do you see this playing out? Do you think he'll bring up the meddling topic at all in this conversation?
You know, this meeting's been going on for a while now. It's probably close to its end at this point. And, you know, it seems like if there was any mention of this topic, it was probably in passing, maybe even a joke. We know that this president tries to use humor, which is not something really that Vladimir Putin is known for in any way, but Donald Trump definitely tries to use jokes to try to ingratiate himself with other people, especially other leaders or other people he's trying to impress. But that if there is any discussion, it will be more about cybersecurity writ large and the threats to both countries than it'll be this president you know, confronting Vladimir Putin over the involvement in the election. That's not something that this president does. You have to remember, you know, all kinds of meetings he's had, including one just earlier this morning with the Mexican president. He does not generally confront people on the issues that he makes a big deal about. Like Mexico paying for the wall is not something that he's been aggressive about face to face with the Mexican leader, let alone to be aggressive on something that he doesn't really fully believe and feels like undermines his legitimacy of his power, such as the Russian involvement in the election.
I think that's a good analysis, and yet this is very different than the meeting with the Mexican president in the sense that intelligence agencies have said that this is a foreign adversary that has meddled in our democracy and in the U.S. election. So how does President Trump come back to the American people and explain the warmness with Vladimir Putin and explain not confronting him on these issues?
You know, I think it's going to be kind of what we saw from him during the campaign, which is that he thinks that the way to work with Russia is to show respect. Sometimes that was not something that President Barack Obama really entirely showed. You know, when he called Russia a regional power, that was something that Putin took great offense to. And I think Trump's approach is that he thinks that if he can make Putin feel respected and liked, and if it goes both ways, that ultimately that will lead to better cooperation on issues like Syria or North Korea. You know, I don't think there will be a lot of discussion of the Ukraine issue. That's not an area where there's a lot of agreement between at least the U.S. foreign policy establishment and Putin.
But, you know, he did yesterday, Donald Trump did in his speech in Poland, criticize Russia for its destabilizing activities in Eastern European area. And he also very clearly stated his support for NATO and Article 5, something that Vladimir Putin has been critical of. That's got to have some sort of impact on the talks they're having.
Yeah, you know, I do think that Trump and his aides are certainly aware that they can't go into this meeting, that they couldn't go into this meeting in a, you know, kind of a too friendly or too subservient a fashion. That the thing that Putin respects is power and other people showing that they are standing up for their own interests, and that there was a way for President Trump to go into this meeting at once showing a willingness to cooperate on certain issues while also staying firm on other things and continuing to try to convey, to some extent anyway, that the U.S. is the solitary world power, but that it's still willing to respect Russia.
You know, so much has been made throughout the coverage, including our own, about Putin and how he's a former KGB officer who can play these Jedi mind tricks, and he knows judo, mental judo perhaps, he plays chess. And yet he called, let's remember, I'm just remembering this from reading our own CBSNews.com article, that he called Trump a genius last year. Right. And so Trump may have some tricks of his own. Are we expecting perhaps a curveball that President Trump will throw
Well, I think there's been some, discussion of whether that was really what he meant or just kind of the translation or interpretation of what he said. But yeah, I mean, I do think that there is a potential that there could be something that the Trump administration has come together. We can't. It's very easy to kind of overestimate Putin, I think, and to underestimate. Say he's ex-KGB. He's met with this is his fourth U.S. president that he's been a peer of. To say all of those things and then to not keep in mind that even while Donald Trump has no experience on the world stage as a head of state, he does have experience with all kinds of, shady business partners and business, adversaries. And that's somewhere where we could see Trump, use some of the tricks that he has, developed over the years, and that there might be some way for him to actually, in at least a small way, get the better of Putin. But whether they're playing on the same, playing field, I think is yet to be seen.
So there are two difficult areas of concern. It's North Korea and Syria. And it certainly seems as if the U.S. and Russia have very different points of view about how to handle those two problems. Do you think, though, there are areas where there will be some common ground? I understand that it may not be discussed during this meeting, but we know that, their high-level cabinet members will continue the work beyond this meeting.
Yeah, while the Syria issue in general, in terms of the Assad regime's role and continued existence, is obviously a place where Russia and the United States have different perspectives, they do agree on the goal of fighting ISIS. So that seems to be the one thing that can bring together a whole lot of countries, is that this is a real threat to kind of Western society. And, so that's one area where there can be some agreement. I think on North Korea, we just saw Russia, oppose UN action. And that's, a continued sort of position of theirs to clog up the works in the UN, and I think that that's likely to continue. But there is still room for there to be some negotiations and some talk about how nuclear security works to both countries' advantages, and how those are some issues, missile defense, that have been on the table for a long time between these two countries, really since the end of the Cold War.
It seems to me, Jennifer, that the White House would want to at least point to some short-term achievements or objectives that were met in this meeting. Do you anticipate that, or do you believe nothing concrete will come out?
I do think that both sides are hoping to come out of this with a win. That's certainly what Trump always wants, is to have at least a short-term win. I do think that that's also Putin's style, that they are similar in that they both want to come out of a meeting, seen as with it being seen as successful, and that they both got something, that they each want to say that they got something. I don't know that they care if the other one says that they got something or not. And so I would expect that there will be, some sense. I think it will be a lot along lines of what the president said beforehand. That it was a positive discussion, that they're getting to know each other, that they think they can work together, that some of those kinds of things will be coming out of this, even if we don't get, the president saying, yeah, I really cut into Vladimir Putin for Russian-linked hacking of, various things, not just the electoral process, but, we've even had reporting just in the last day about threats to various nuclear power plants in the U.S. This is a broader thing than just, the democracy piece of it is obviously quite large. Yeah. But so is, things like the security of nuclear power plants around the U.S. and all the other kinds of cyber hacking that are happening, some by the Russians, some by the Chinese, some by other countries, others by non-state actors. And those are areas where I think there's always going to be an expectation on the U.S. side that Russia is doing some of that, but there's also, Russia being aware of all the threats that it faces on that front, and that it goes both ways, and that, security is important on both sides.
Yeah. Okay. Jennifer Epstein, thanks for making those points with us.
Thanks.